All right, this last example, sketch with without a calculator, 2 plus 3 cosine of 2x plus pi. If you logged in and you should have received this quick point, this is what I mean by how I'm going to be grading you, because you're going to be entering the coordinates after we sketch this, and I put a graph right next to it because it's going to show the points should land on this graph. But let's first go ahead and sketch this. Before we start sketching, let's find out the information. What is the amplitude for this particular example? Yeah, whatever's in front of the cosine, the absolute value of 3 is 3. What about the period? Yeah, 2 pi over 2, which is pi. Now for the counting markers, if you want to figure that out already, we could do that. You take the period, divide it into 4. I guess divide the period into 4 parts. So in this case, it's going to be pi divided by 4. There's no need to simplify it. So my counting markers is going to be 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, and 4 pi over 4. But before I start figuring out the translation, because I know that there's going to be translation here because of this plus pi, there's a horizontal translation, which is the phase shift. This plus 2 or positive 2 indicates a vertical translation. But first, I need to sketch the untranslated graph. So the untranslated graph is basically take this portion of the graph and take away those horizontal translations. So let's start off with that. In this example right here, the untranslated graph is 3 cosine of 2x. Yes, sir. All right, so let's create our grid here. Now, I'm going to put the markers on there. This is going to be 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4. And notice how the last counting marker should match up what the period is, which is 4 pi over 4 reduces to pi. I'm not reducing them again, just so that you understand what I mean by the counting markers. At the very end, when I give my coordinates, I'll go ahead and reduce them. Now the untranslated graph, which again is 3 cosine of 2x. For cosine, what are the key points? Where does cosine start off at? Well, in this example, yes, but it's going to start off at 3, but for the parent function, it's going to start off at 1, and it does something like this. So the key points are going to be these the max, intercept, a minimum, another intercept, and then back up to a max. But because again, yes, like you were saying, the amplitude is 3, I'm going to go ahead and start off at 3. So this is 3, and then down to negative 3. So the first key point has to be here. Next one, looking at the key point, the structure for cosine is going to be an intercept point, back down to a minimum, intercept, and back up to a maximum. Remember that first I have to sketch this with dashed lines because this is not my final graph. This is my untranslated graph. Now, if I want to continue, now I want to sketch the translated graph, so I need to apply the translations. But before I do that, let's figure out the translations. We knew that there was a vertical translation of how many units? 2, right? Because that's this one over here, the 2 plus, and it is positive. So what does positive mean? If it's vertical, up or down? Up. So I'm going to go 2 units up. Now the horizontal one, which we're going to call the phase shift, is basically, to figure that out, other page, we have to take this 2x plus pi, whatever's in front or inside the cosine, 2x plus pi, set it equal to 0, and solve for x. So what's the phase shift? Yeah, negative pi over 2. Negative means what? Not down, because this is a horizontal, so yeah. So be careful. This one's going left. Because remember, horizontal is left or right, and negative, basically I kind of go back to my sketch. Negative means it's going to go in the negative direction. Let me leave this up for a little while. Now we're going to go back to the graph, and we're going to basically take all our key points and translate them. All right. So here are my key points. Now, because I know I have to go negative pi over 2, my counting markers are by pi over 4. How many of markers does it take to make pi over 2? Which is how many? 2, right? Because this, from here to here, one marker is pi over 4. If I go another one, notice how this 2 pi over 4 is pi over 2. So 2 of these make that pi over 2. So I need to translate each one of these 2 markers in both directions. So I have to create other markers like negative 1 pi over 4, negative 2 pi over 4. Now be careful here that you just keep everything to scale. All right, so I'm going to apply both the horizontal and the vertical translation. The vertical translation was up 2 units, so I need to create 2 more markers up 2 units. So take this key point. I'm going to go ahead and shift. Is that pi over 2? No. Remember that it's got to be 2 of these markers. It's going to go this way, and then I have to go up 2 units. So this is going to be that first key point once I translate it. Now do the same thing for all of them. Take this one, translate it, pi over 2 units, and up 2 units. Now, if you want to start kind of, sketching the structure of it so that you don't get too confused, you can start doing that already, piece by piece, and then just continue with the other key points. All right. Now, the only thing is that you want to make sure that you're careful with, where the points land, because we're going to eventually need the coordinates for those points. So this is 1, that's pi over 4, but I need to go another pi over 4 and up 2 units. So just be careful when you do translate it that, you make sure, like, for example, this point I was going negative pi over 2, and then up 2 units. And the final thing that I want to be interested in is, can you give me those coordinates? So let's go ahead and give the coordinates. The first key point, once it was translated, now it's going to land at negative 2 pi over 4, which reduces to negative pi over 2, comma. Now what's the y value here? 5, because I'm at 3, I went up 2 units. The coordinates here are going to be negative pi over 4, comma 2, right? Let me make this a little bit darker. What are the coordinates at this minimum key point? What's this mark? Negative 1. And then this one down here is going to be 1 pi over 4, or just pi over 4, comma 2. And then this last one is 2 pi over 4, but I'm going to reduce that to pi over 2, comma 5. Now go ahead and enter these into the quick pull. And if you do that, it was supposed to come out where these are parentheses. The parentheses didn't come out. But this first box right here, what you type in is the x. So let me do that on mine. So the first key point, and the thing is that it doesn't matter the order. I'm going to type in negative pi over 2, comma 5. Okay, so if I go back to the quick poll, I'm going to type in negative pi over 2. That's the x value. Um, then tab to go to the next box. Now I have to give the y value, which in my sketch is going to be 5. So I'm going to type in 5. Now notice how that point popped up on my graph. This one right here. And what you want to make sure is that all of them should pop up where they're supposed to. Like in my sketch right here, you can see that that corresponds to this one. Now, if for whatever reason you got a key point that's wrong, like let's say for here I got the y value was 4, notice how the point doesn't land in my graph, so that lets me know that I didn't do this correctly. So just be careful with that. So go ahead and enter these. That way you practice on entering them into the calculator.